All right, guys. So the Chicago Bears 2025 schedule released last Wednesday. So I know I'm a little late to the party, but I want to kind of go over our schedule and give my record predictions. Not going to go too much in depth for each team that we face because it is 17 games, which would take a lot of time in this video. And from now until the season begins, a lot could happen. Whether it's God forbid injuries or trades happen or whatever. So as of right now, I'm going to do my very early record prediction for the Chicago Bears, and I'll let you guys know what the win-loss record would be starting off week 1 on Monday Night Football. And this sucks so much because as much as I want us to be, on prime time in some ways. I don't want us to be on prime time too much, but the fact that we got to wait till Monday on week 1 until 7:15 p.m. to play our first NFL game. Man, that's going to be a super long weekend for us. But nonetheless, we are facing the Minnesota Vikings. And this one is an interesting one because if this was Sam Darnold still here, I might say this would be an L. But we are getting J.J. McCarthy because, as you guys know, Sam Darnold was not released, but he was allowed to walk in free agency to the Seattle Seahawks. And now they're starting J.J. McCarthy, who they drafted at 10th overall last season. So J.J. McCarthy was injured last year, got injured in preseason, so did not play not one snap at all. So this will be his first NFL game, his first real-life action of NFL football. Obviously, he played a little bit in preseason, but it's nothing like the actual NFL seasons against true starters and against Ben Johnson. So I do think we do win this game. I think it's going to be a little bit of a close game with Minnesota. I don't expect too much of a high-scoring game, but I do think we pull out the victory here just because J.J. McCarthy, whether or not he becomes a good quarterback, is not going to be the difference maker here. I think just week 1 in general for any rookie quarterback is going to be tough, just like it was for Jaden Daniels, just like it was for Caleb Williams, just like it was for Bo Nix. Every quarterback, 99% of the time, is going to have a really bad week 1. And for J.J. McCarthy, that's fine. But we're going to take advantage of that. And I think we win against the Vikings week 1, starting off 1-0. At least I hope so. Now we're going to week 2 against Detroit. And this is a game where if we were going to face Detroit, I kind of wanted it to be a little bit later into the season, maybe after week 6, so that we can sort of get our feet wet with this new offense that Ben is running, with the new acquisitions and new draft picks, sort of, gaining that chemistry with their teammates. And this is just way too early to be facing the Detroit Lions, and I know the Lions and Lions fans are going to want to win this game because of Ben Johnson leaving the Detroit Lions for division rival in the Chicago Bears. And with the Detroit Lions, man, I know they lost a lot of their staff. Last year, they lost, obviously, Ben Johnson to us. They lost Aaron Glenn, their defensive coordinator, to the Jets. We took Antoine Randall L. and J.T. Barrett, the wide receiver coach and the quarterbacks coach, away from them. So there is a lot of new staff changes with the Detroit Lions, but the one thing that didn't change too much is their roster. They still have one of the best offensive lines in football. They still have, on offense, they still have Jared Goff, who's a solid quarterback. They got David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, probably a top 3 running back duo. They've got Amon-Ra St. Brown. They've got Jameson Williams. They got Sam Laporta. You guys already know this was a top offense last year, arguably the best offense last year. Now that we have Ben Johnson, that could change a little bit. I don't think the Detroit Lions are all of a sudden going to be a really bad team. I still think because of their roster and because of Dan Campbell still being there, I still think they're going to be a solid team. Probably not the same 15-win team they were last year, but I still project them to be around 12 wins next year. So for this game, just because Ben Johnson is a new head coach and the players are still kind of getting new, still need more time to gel together, I am going to give the Detroit Lions a victory here. So the L for the Bears, putting them at 1-1 for now. Now, week 3 gets a little interesting because we are now facing the Dallas Cowboys, who, if you guys know, Matt Eberflus is now their defensive coordinator. The terrorist of Chicago is coming back to Chicago to, call defensive plays for Dallas. And obviously, as much as we want to, crap on Matt Eberflus for how bad he was as a head coach, he became a head coach for a reason. He was a really good defensive coordinator. Maybe not like the best in the league, like a Robert Saleh or anything, but he was good enough to land a head coaching job. And with Dallas, they do have guys like Micah Parsons. They got Trayvon, or is it Trayvon Diggs? Or someone else, something Diggs. I forgot who it is. But they got a decent amount of players on defense. I still think they're going to be a solid team. And then obviously the Cowboys are just known for a team to be really good in the regular season and really good early on. So with Dak coming back, obviously that helps. They went ahead and traded for George Pickens, so now they have a really solid wide receiver too. You have CeeDee Lamb, who's probably a top 5 wide receiver in this league. So I am going to give the edge actually to the Dallas Cowboys just because I feel like their roster is more solidified. You add Matt Eberflus, who is as much as we want to say what we want to say about Matt Eberflus, he is a much better defensive play caller than whoever they had last year. So I do think that with Dallas, I do think we lose that game. I think it's going to be close. I would really love for us to win that game, but I do think Dak Prescott and that offense is just too good, and their offensive line is also really good as well. So I think with the Bears still, once again, getting their feet well, still getting used to each other, I do think we take the L there. So that puts us at 1-2 for now. Then we go over to Vegas. And this is going to be a fun game because, one, Las Vegas, we're really good with getting Bears fans out there for the away games too. The Raiders, whether they were in Oakland, whether they were in Vegas, I do really think that we are going to get a lot of Bears fans out there. So I do think that in terms of the stadium, it's going to look a lot like, a Bears home game. But I will say for Vegas, I know a lot of people are sort of counting this as an easy W for us, and I don't necessarily think it's going to be an easy W. I will say I do think we win here, so that makes us 2-2. But going into a little bit of a deep dive, Geno Smith is still a solid quarterback. They drafted Ashton Genty, which was obviously the running back that pretty much all of Chicago wanted. They still have Jacoby Myers, who's a solid receiver. They drafted Jake Beck in the second round. They got a couple new offensive line pickups. So they obviously have a top 5 tight end, even a top 3 tight end, arguably, in Brock Bowers. So honestly, this could be a bit of a closer game than most people are willing to give them credit for. But I still think we do win. And keep in mind, too, they also have Pete Carroll as well. So if we were to lose this game, it actually wouldn't surprise me too much just because I don't think this team is as bad as people think it is. Or think this team isn't as bad as people think they are. So I am still going to give us the win here, but it's going to be close. Then we have a Week 5 bye here. And that kind of sucks because I did not want the Bears to have such an early bye. The Eagles had an early bye last year and they won the Super Bowl, so I guess. But obviously our roster is nowhere near the likes of the 2024 Philadelphia Eagles. So I would rather have, in a season where you're playing 17 games, obviously we added the 17th game a few seasons back, and now you're going to have to play, another 12 games after the bye? You don't have that sort of late break when your bodies are beaten and bruised up. I really think a Week 5 bye is super unnecessary. I believe we're the first wave of teams to have a bye. I think Week 5 is sort of like when teams have their bye weeks. Or start to have their bye weeks, and I really don't like that for Chicago, but it is what it is. Moving on to Washington, to the Commanders. This team, obviously, we know last year gave us PTSD, and we could have, or we honestly should have beat this team last year. Honestly, though, I know a lot of Bears fans want to say this is going to be a revenge game, and because it took a Hail Mary for Jaden Daniels to beat us last year, that all of a sudden that means with a new and improved roster, we should be able to beat them. That, honestly, is not necessarily the case here. You have to keep in mind they traded for Deebo Samuel, which obviously he hasn't been the same in the past few years, but he's still a solid receiver, a solid weapon too. You have Laramie Tunsil, who they traded for. They drafted Josh Connerly with their first-round pick, so they got a really good, honestly, offensive line on paper, solid receivers. I just don't think that we're going to beat this team. I think even with the upgrades that we have on our team, I think Jaden Daniels, last year we faced him in Week 6, and as the season progressed, he just got better and better, made it all the way to the NFC Championship, and he's going to only build off of that. I really think that the coaching is really good for them. I don't think that we are on par with them yet. Now, by that time, who knows? Maybe Caleb Williams is better than Jaden Daniels, and I sure hope so. I just don't think if it's going to happen, I don't think it's going to happen that early, and I think Washington is just too good as of right now to where I can comfortably say we can beat them coming Week 6. So I am going to give them an L here. I think it's going to be a close matchup, a bit of a high-scoring game because their defense is still questionable, but I don't think that we beat them here. So that puts us at 2-3. Then we go New Orleans here. Not going to go too much into this. This is arguably the worst team in the league. This is going to be an easy win here, or at least it should be. They were already a bad team with Derek Carr, and now he's retired. They got Tyler Shuck now, who's like a 25-year-old quarterback. They got Spencer Rattler, who I kind of hope he starts that game just so it can be sort of the Caleb Williams versus Spencer Rattler matchup when they were teammates in Oklahoma. But I don't think this team is going to be going anywhere. Alvin Kamara is getting older. Their defense is terrible. They didn't really do much to address their team in general. They're always in cap hell every year. I think it's going to be an easy win. Now we're going to arguably our hardest matchup of the year. That's going to be the Baltimore Ravens. And need I not say more? It's going to be an L here. You've got Lamar Jackson, who arguably should have won MVP last year. Was MVP runner-up. You got Derrick Henry, who, if it wasn't for Saquon Barkley, could have been Offensive Player of the Year as well with 1,900 rushing yards. You've got Mark Andrews. You've got Isaiah Likely. They added Mike Green in the draft. This is just, and they got Malachi Starks as well in the first round, which is a crazy steal for them at safety. I think their defense is going to be too good. I think their offense is going to be too good. They could low-key be my Super Bowl championship, honestly, for this year. I think Lamar could probably do it this year. But Baltimore is going to be way too tough of a task for us this year. I doubt we beat them. I'm going to give us an L right there. Then we go to Cincinnati, who it could be either way here because obviously we know the Bengals last year were just a tale of two sides, honestly, with them. They were an explosive offense, arguably a top 5 offense in this league. But their defense was easily the worst, or at least bottom 3, to be honest, bottom 2. I think they were the worst, in my opinion. I think Cincinnati was like a top 3 offense, especially with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, with T. Higgins and Chase Brown stepping in place of Joe Mixon. Mike Gesicki having kind of like newfound life with his new team. I think they're going to be a tough team to beat, but I do think we beat them only because of 2 reasons. One, I think their first round pick in Shamar Stewart is not going to be good in the NFL. I do think he's going to be a bust. Could prove me wrong, but was not productive at all in college. I don't think they did a good job likely replacing Trey Hendrickson, which is onto my second point. They might not even have Trey Hendrickson for this game. He might be traded away from now until the beginning of the season. He might be gone. This is week 9, so he might be gone by the trade deadline. So if they get rid of him and you're just left with Shamar Stewart and their former first round pick in Miles Murphy, I mean, that's it, bro. Their defense is cooked at that point. So I do think that we beat them here. Unless there are other draft picks or other players on defense step up, I really doubt that they're going to beat us. So give me the victory against Cincinnati. It's going to be a hard-fought victory. And we've beaten them before. We beat them back in 2021 with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. So I do think we beat them here. The New York Giants is next up on week 10. New York Giants are in a similar way as the Raiders. I do think the Raiders are better than the Giants, but I don't think they're as bad as a team that people are sort of pointing them out to be. Now, Giants have like a super tough schedule. Their schedule is, man, go look at their schedule. It's brutal. But they have a really good defensive line. And I mean, as of right now, trades could happen, but if they were to go into week 10 with the same defensive line, it would be Abdul Carter, who is arguably the best player in the draft last year or in this past year. Then you've got Dexter Lawrence, who's a top 5 defensive tackle. You got Brian Burns at edge rusher. And you even got a third edge rusher in Kayvon Thibodeau, who not exactly living up to his top 5 or top 6 pick status, but he is still a very solid pass rusher, and that's just a great rotation to have there. But I think their offense, a couple pieces there. Obviously, Malik Neighbors is there, and Tyrone Tracy, I believe his name is. Jackson Dart could be a solid quarterback. I'm actually pretty high on Jackson Dart. I don't think he'll be starting this game, and probably won't even start at all this year. They'll have Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston there. I still don't think they're going to be that good this year. I don't think they're going to be terrible, and I do think this game could be a little closer than most people might think, but I am going to give the Bears a victory here. I'm going to count up the wins in the end. I'm kind of losing track right now, but I do think the Bears win against the New York Giants, especially at home. Now we go to Minnesota to play the Minnesota Vikings once again. We beat them week 1, and I see a lot of people saying that we would split with them, and I do see that as well. However, I'm going to be a little bit more optimistic for the Bears here, and also just the fact that I'm not really high on J.J. McCarthy at all. Like, I really don't think that the kind of offense that he's going into from college at Michigan, where he wasn't asked to win with his arm, and he just kind of handed the ball off a lot. And obviously having a coach like Harbaugh in Michigan helps, and having Colson Loveland, there. He does have good weapons, but I think the kind of offense that you're going from in Michigan to Minnesota is just too different. and I don't think McCarthy's going to be that good of a quarterback. I'm going to actually take us sweeping the Minnesota Vikings here. I do think that the Vikings are not that good of a team outside of, obviously they are a good team, but their quarterback is really going to be what drags them down. And, they have weapons for days, sure, but we honestly matched up against them pretty well last year, at least in the first matchup when we took them to overtime, and with a much better coach and a much better staff around us and a much better roster around us. I do think that's going to be the difference maker here. And with them having a downgrade at quarterback, I do think it's a hard-fought battle, but I do think we sweep them this year. Then we are back home to face the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the Steelers, I don't know what they're going to do at quarterback. If they have Aaron Rodgers, it could be very interesting, and I kind of want them to because, man, if we get to play Aaron Rodgers one last time and send him into retirement, oh, that would be poetic. I would absolutely love that for the Bears. And if they don't have him, then I don't know what they're going to do with him, or I don't know what they're going to do at quarterback. Will Howard probably. I don't know. Mason Rudolph. I mean, their defense is always good, but I still think we're going to win here. If it's Aaron Rodgers, it gives them a fighting chance just because, he does know Chicago very well. But I do think that Aaron Rodgers, the conversation with Aaron Rodgers might be a little bit over, to be honest. I don't really know if he's going to be with the Bears. Jesus Christ, don't ever say that. I don't think he's going to be with the Steelers. But I do think that whatever quarterback they have, I think their options are very limited. And no matter who they throw out there, they're not going to be good enough to beat the Bears and Ben Johnson. So give me a win for the Bears against Pittsburgh. And then maybe the other super tough matchup for us is the Philadelphia Eagles. Once again, I'm not going to go too much into this. They got Saquon Barkley. They got Jalen Hurts, who just won a Super Bowl last year. Their defense is amazing with Vic Fangio, former Bear. It's going to be a massacre, man. I mean, I just hope at least the Bears are somewhat competitive here. If we can lose by less than 10 points, I think that's a victory in my books. But yeah, I do think the Philadelphia Eagles are going to win here. Prime time, it sucks that we have to face them on prime time. I'm not really sure why they did that to us, the NFL scheduling people. I don't know why they went ahead and put us on prime time, but it is what it is. We got to play who we got to play. Whatever, man. We'll lose that game. Then finally, I don't know why they took so long or why they scheduled Green Bay so far into the schedule, but I guess we'll take it, man. Green Bay at week 14 at Green Bay, and the last time, obviously, Caleb Williams was at Green Bay, we beat them. So for the Bears, man, I really do think that the Green Bay Packers are no longer the threat that they once were. Even from Jordan Love's first year, which was, I think, last year, I think that not last year, but the season before in 2023, I do think Jordan Love took a step back, and the entire team in general took a step back. Now, obviously, they got Josh Jacobs in there, but I'm not really a fan of what Jordan Love brings to the table. He did good last year, and I think once he was figured out, he just has been shown to be a very turnover-prone quarterback, a guy that makes a lot of questionable decisions. And keep in mind, this dude I know this is only his second, or now going into his third year starting, but he's been in the NFL for 5 years now. And really the kind of mistakes that he's made is sort of something you'd see out of a quarterback that's been in the league for 1 to 2 years. But he sat behind Rodgers, for the first 3 seasons of his career. So I'm not really sure why he's still making the mistakes that he's made. I'm not really scared of the Packers anymore. Really not. Like, we could have swept them last year. We were a tipped field goal from sweeping them last year with Eberflus as head coach, with Shane Waldron as offensive coordinator. Well, I think it was Thomas Brown at that time. But still, with Flus as our head coach, I mean, we've upgraded a ton since then. The only notable upgrade really that they made was Matthew Golden, which honestly, I'm not even a big fan of Matthew Golden. I still think Luther Burden was a better prospect, who we have. So I do think we beat Green Bay here. And I'm going to give a little spoiler here. I think we sweep them. I'm going to be honest with you. I think I'm a little too overhyped with this, but I do think we sweep the Packers as well. If we're going to go ahead and say we're going to beat Minnesota, I think Green Bay is not as scary. They didn't really do much to address their defensive line. It was not that great last year. We saw Caleb Williams, what he did. I mean, Matt LaFleur is still a great coach, but Ben Johnson knows him. I don't really think that we're going to be in the same boat anymore. I don't think that the Green Bay Packers are that much of a threat anymore. And I really do think we can sweep them. So obviously giving a little bit of a spoiler for week 16 as well, but I do think we sweep them. And it's going to be close, both games, but I still think we sweep them. I'll go real quick into Cleveland. Obviously, just like the New Orleans Saints, terrible team. I know they have Mason Graham, great draft pick. They have Myles Garrett, obviously a top defensive end. They got Denzel Ward, a top corner. What else do they have? I mean, they did draft Judkins, and they drafted Dylan Sampson, so that's a really good running back duo, and they still have Jerome Ford in there, so actually a really good running back trio. But their quarterback, unfortunately, is still Deshaun Watson. Now, I know they had Shedeur Sanders in there. We'll see how he turns out. I don't think he's that good. Dylan Gabriel as well. They got Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett. So that's one hell of a QB room. That's for all the wrong reasons, to be honest. But whatever, man. I do think we beat them. I don't think any of those quarterbacks are going to be good to match up with us. And they're still going to be a bottom 5 team, in my opinion. So I think we do take care of them. Then going over to San Francisco. Now, they did lose a couple pieces, and they just paid Brock Purdy, I believe, $53 million for the next 5 years. So got the bag, Brock Purdy. They did lose a lot of pieces, but I still think Kyle Shanahan's a really good coach. I think that even if CMC, we'll see, where he's at, if he's healthy, if he's still on the team, or wherever they throw. Honestly, they throw anybody at running back. They can throw their janitor at running back, and he's still going to rush for 80 yards a game. So Kyle Shanahan just has the best scheme when it comes to running the football, and they still have George Kittle. And we saw what they did to us last year. I don't think it's going to be that bad, but I still do think that we lose, especially in San Francisco, man. I think that the 49ers just kind of have our number, and I think Brock Purdy is still a really good quarterback. I don't think he's like an MVP candidate this year or anything, but I still think that they're going to be a solid team. Not the team that they once were, but still a really good team, and I think it's enough to beat us. Then we go over to Detroit. We come back home, and Detroit comes to us. And now this is the game where it's like, this sucks, man. I don't want to have to face Detroit week 2 when we're not ready. And then we most likely lose, and then we have to wait all the way to week 18 to face them again. I don't know why the NFL did that, but whatever, man. We'll play them week 18. And if my wins, go as predicted here, I believe I'm at 10 wins so far. I think this might be the game to decide the division, maybe. And I think with that on the line, with the team fully gelled together, playing a full season together with Caleb Williams, another full season essentially in his belt, with a second year wrapping up, with Ben Johnson completing his first year as head coach, I do think we go ahead and we beat the Detroit Lions at home, which puts us at 11-6. And that might be pretty optimistic for the Bears, and that might be pretty optimistic on my end. But if I explain really quickly, I think J.J. McCarthy's not a great quarterback. I think the Lions are going to take a bit of a step back without Aaron Glenn, and without especially Ben Johnson and Antoine Randall and JT Barrett as a QB coach. I think Jared Goff's going to have to play a little bit more quarterbacking, more than he is sort of used to now without Ben Johnson. And we'll see what their new coordinators do. I think the Raiders are better, but they're not going to be as good. The New Orleans Saints are not going to be that good. I think Cincinnati has an amazing offense, but their defense is still terrible, and it could get even worse if Trey Hendrickson is gone by then. I do think the Giants are better than what we give them credit for, but I still think they're going to be a bottom team next year. Pittsburgh, no quarterback. They're not going to have a quarterback to beat us. Green Bay is not the threat that they once were. We should have swept them last year, and we were literally a tip field goal away from sweeping them last year, and the only big change they made was getting Matthew Golden in the first round. And even if he turns out to be a good receiver, I still don't think that's enough to fix a lot of the other issues that they had, because it wasn't just receiver that was the problem for them. They have good depth at receiver, and Jordan Love is a solid quarterback, but he's not Aaron Rodgers, and he's no longer a threat. The same threat he was, I believe, in 2023. Cleveland Browns, obviously, we know they're a terrible team. And Detroit, the second time around, I think we beat them. So it gave me 11-6 for the Chicago Bears, and that is going to at least be second place in the division. Now, the Lions could have 12 wins or 12 or more wins, or that could be the tiebreaker where we both have 11 wins, and the tiebreaker would probably go to the Bears, maybe because of division. But that's where I have it. For now, I think 11-6 for now. This can change very well by week 1, where my prediction, I'm going to release another video probably closer to week 1 of the NFL season. Hopefully, we have new trades, new players or whatever, or maybe our division rivals trade away good players. Who knows? We'll see what happens. But let me know what you guys think of my record prediction. Do you guys agree with me? Yes or no? Leave a comment down below. Bear down, I'm out.